Hello, good morning. My name is Omar, and I'll be hosting this session. Hi, Lim. Good morning. So we'll wait for others to come on in. Yeah. So send me a note on the chat box. Wow. Good morning. A lot of people are coming in. That's great. Good morning, Muhammad Khairi, Tan Suhan, Nurul Huda. Wow, I can't even catch up with the names coming in. Hi. Good morning. Good morning, Karen. Morning, Rachel. MRJS. Okay. Ben Orion. That's an interesting name. Rachel Amit, Iskandar, Tarshin, Sumiato. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So nice to see so many people coming in. Yeah, okay. So, Noor Shafika, Tracy Wong, Parimala, Maria Hazreen, Tang. There's a lot of names here. Veronica Lai. Pardon my voice. I'm just recovering from a cold, so it's a bit hoarse. Carl Stevenson, Ashraf. Good morning. Good morning, Hayati. Good morning, Tammy. Good morning, Noor Susanna. Good morning, Nianan. Abby or Abby. Okay. Hi, good morning, Priyal. Good morning, Wilkin. Good morning, Vanessa. Irfanuddin. I'm sorry if I missed some of your names, but I'm trying to catch up with the list coming on. Yeah. Yeah, so good morning. Good morning, Chang, YS Chang, Shafira Adelia. Good morning, Isaha, Shamsul, Hui, Regina, good morning. Shafira Adelia. Oh, we've done that already. Nur Hidayah, good morning. Good morning, Isabel. Morning, Rich, Arlene. Okay, we'll give it a couple more minutes for people to come on in. I don't know about you guys, but where I'm at right now, I'm actually at Kota Damansara, and weather's really nice. It's not too hot, very cloudy, and I think people also need a break from the rain. QJ, good morning. Good morning, Ku Shakira. Kuching is sunny. Okay, MRJS, you're in Kuching. Where's the rest of you from? We got people from Kuching. Gaisa Putang, good morning. Good morning, Wai Chung. We got some, Regina, you're from KL. Kuching is hot and sunny. Okay, we got that. Jakarta, Tammy, welcome. So happy to see a non-Malaysian as well here. TRX KL, Nordiana. Hi, Tarshin. Oh, wait, Tarshin is from KL. So we got people from KLCC. I hear it's going to be snowing in KLCC this evening. Is that made up, or is that something that's going to happen? Putrajaya, we got people from Putrajaya, Penang. QJ, hilarious. What's hilarious, QJ? Mrs. Ainul Amelia, okay. Good morning. Snowing in KLCC. Oh, okay. Is going to be real? I mean, I'm not real as in nature, but are they going to do something in KLCC? Anybody know? Kuching, a lot of people from Kuching. Okay. All right, there's a good 5 minutes of people coming in. I think I'll give it another minute because more people are still coming in. More people from Kuching, Shah Alam, Jacqueline, Sri Barundang is from Kuching. Hi, how are you? Is that Kripo? Or Saida? Oh, it's still more coming in. Okay. Shah Alam from Sarike. Rachel Amin is from Sarike. Okay. Lydia, KL Bangsa. Yes, I'm on a roll, MRJS. You guys are on a roll for coming in. Yeah, there's still people coming in, so I'm just going to give it another minute. I keep extending it, but we can't extend it for too much longer. Okay, good morning, Shuk. All right. Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Shaikh Omar. You can just call me Omar. And like I mentioned earlier, I've got a bit of a sore throat, recovering from a sore throat. It's getting better now. And welcome to the Naluri community webinar, which is held every month. And the topics that we share are topics that are related to well-being. And today is my turn as a presenter. And I'm actually a communication coach. And the topic for my presentation today is words that work. Words that work. Okay, so let's get into this. A little bit about myself. I'm a communication coach, as I mentioned, and my mission is really to help people become intelligent and effective communicators. I've been doing training for more than a decade, close to 15 years now. And before that, I was in IT. I was in IT for over 20 years. And in IT, there's a lot of stress, especially if you're dealing with deadlines and clients, and very strong clients as well who are very demanding. And what I'd like to share with you today, had I known about it when I was in IT, I think it would have made my life a lot easier. And I think if a lot of people know about it, it would have made their lives a lot easier as well. And we probably could have solved a lot of the problems a lot faster with less stress and less hostility. And over the past 10 years or so that I've been training, like a lot of other trainers, I've also taken courses that has helped me enhance the quality of my training. Okay, so let's get on to it. That's a little bit about myself, and let's get on to what we're going to be doing today. But before that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Obviously, you're in the right browser. Your internet is okay. What I like to highlight is that I'm not alone. With me are people from Naluri to assist me on technical issues. So if you have technical issues, please send a message to @Naluri Events. Okay. Yes, Regina, people in IT sure do need lots of communication skills at work. You're absolutely right. I think most of the problems could have been solved much more easily if everybody knew how to communicate. Okay, so as I was saying, if you need technical assistance, please send a message to @Naluri Events. A little bit more on housekeeping and on tips on how to get the most out of this webinar is if I were to ask you a question, I would appreciate some answers because how I get energized is when people participate in the polls, for instance, when you share your thoughts and you write some opinions in the chat box. And if you want to send the message directly to me, just type @Omar, and I'll be able to see a message. There's also at the end of the presentation, you can also download these slides as handouts, yeah? Okay. Let's move on. All right, so let me introduce to you what this next hour is going to be all about. We're going to be talking about stress, but more importantly, how to reduce stress. Okay, and the two aspects, the two sources of stress that I like to talk about are these two. One is how we interact with others, how we communicate with one another. And the other one is actually how we look at the world. You know how sometimes we get some people get stressed out when they look at a particular situation. Some people don't. So we want to be able to look at this and try to understand more about ourselves. So when we understand how to interact with others and how we look at the world, I think we're able to reduce our stress levels considerably. All right. So over the next hour, I hope to share some information that's going to give you a sense of understanding of yourself, which is going to bring you a lot more joy and productivity and reduce your amount of stress. Is that okay? I hope that's okay with you guys. All right, so hang on for the ride and let's go. So here's the agenda. It's not too complicated. We're going to delve into some elements of stress, and then we're going to go into how we communicate, but more importantly, how we think as a communicator. That might sound obvious, how we think as a communicator, but I'd like to delve into that a little deeper, right? And from there, we're going to derive a communication model called DISC, D-I-S-C. Some of you may have heard of it, but if you have heard of it, I'd like to encourage you to stay on, because I'm going to put a little twist to it that you may or may not be aware of, and this is going to help you considerably. Oh, we've also got Mayuri from Bangkok. Hi there, Mayuri. Okay, we've got people on from Bangsa, Kuching. Okay, great. Wow, we've got visitors here from Bangkok, from Jakarta. That's really nice to hear. Nice to see. All right, so that's a little bit on our agenda. So let's just jump right in. Now, on an everyday basis, these are some of the stresses we encounter. Of course, there's a zillion more, I'm sure you can add. But if I were to group them or categorize them, I think these are the major ones. Yeah, I used to drive about 2 hours to work, one way, right? So there's 2 hours to work, 2 hours back. And there's always been one of my major sources of stress. And until I started to understand how I think, or perhaps even how people think, it actually brought down my stress level in traffic jams. And I also made it more productive by listening to lectures or to productive YouTube videos. We also get stress from family. Yeah, the family that we love dearly, they're also a constant stress, unfortunately. We get stress from work. That's a big one. And the way we communicate with others, how they communicate with us, sometimes they're a source of stress to us, and sometimes we are a source of stress to them. And of course, there's always arguments in a meeting room, arguments about what decisions we should make. Yeah. And when I talk about arguments, I'm not necessarily talking about people who are not friendly to us, but it could also be among friends. So if you look at it, every day we go through this stress. So what I'd like you to do is just take a poll. And so let me look at the poll here. What I see is that work pressure is really the number one stress point that people suffer from. The lowest is actually family interactions. Okay, family interactions is for the lowest. So work pressure is number one. Then we've got we've got arguments. We've got traffic jams, and we also have communication somewhere at the bottom. Right. So if I were to rank again, work pressure is number one. Arguments is number two. Communication is actually number three. Traffic jams is number four, and family interactions number five. All right, and these are all the different stress levels that people face. Now, although communication is not high up there, I'd like to suggest that communication is actually one of the highlights, or rather one of the activities that is a cause of major stress among all of us. And I'll get into that. And when I talk about communication, people may not realize this, but when I talk about communication, there are really two dimensions to communication, right? Two aspects to communication. So let me get into the first one. The first one is actually uh, how we communicate. And when I talk about how we communicate, is me communicating to you and you communicating to me. So if you look at some of the points I've listed down here, for instance, if I were talking to you right now, and if it's a one-to-one communication, sometimes there's no eye contact, and it can be very frustrating to the person who's speaking, because he's thinking, is this person literally listening to me? Is he paying attention? Um, is he not listening? Right? Or if you're in a meeting room, you're doing a presentation, and people are distracted by their phone, they're texting, and when you ask questions or opinions, they are unresponsive. So that can be very aggravating. So all of these are little stresses that we actually don't realize that is building up in us. And all these little stresses add up, and they make us produce a hormone called cortisol. And the hormone, this hormone called cortisol. Okay, guys, we just recovered from an internet disconnect. I'm not sure where I lost you, but let me look at the chat, which is really great. Some really very significant and yeah, some very significant and knowledgeable or very intelligent responses here. Um, Arif says he stresses himself out constantly. Yeah, that's really interesting, Arif. And I hope the second dimension about stress will help you clear this up. Ida says that, or Ida says that people stress them out. People stresses are out. Okay, so for Ida and Arif, bear with me. I think by the end of this presentation, I hope you see some light. Okay, and QJ is talking about how do we handle stress issues or communication issues in this new era where we're using technology to communicate. Okay, so some of these questions I may not be able to answer you in depth, and you may want to consult with some of our Naluri consultants later, but I'll try to answer them. Lydia says stress is a choice. That's interesting, and you're absolutely right. I think once you start to understand the various aspects of communication, you can really make a choice whether you want to be stressed or not. QG says, at times, if communication is done effectively, we can solve stress issues. Some of you type cortisol. Yeah, cortisol is a hormone that's produced by our body when we're stressed out. And when this hormone is produced, it stresses our body. And the more it stresses our body, the more it could lead to sickness. So some of us don't realize that all the little things that causes stress will produce cortisol that can lead to sickness. Right? So that's another topic. Lim says, how do we communicate to a person even when we say no, that our boss is not available, but yet they use their boss's names or even go directly to my boss? Okay, that's a very specific question. That's interesting. And I hope some form of answer can come out of it as we go through the slides. Okay, so I think we all agree that how we communicate can be a major source of stress. Now these sources of stress are what I call circumstantial. In other words, if someone is distracted, it's not that it doesn't really reflect them as a person. It's just that for that moment, they are distracted. Of course, it could be many, many times that they're distracted. They're always distracted, but these are all circumstantial. It depends on the mood. It depends on the circumstances they're in, and it can even be applied to us. So it could be you yourself who's distracted or who are unresponsive, right? So this can go back and forth. The more significant aspect of communication that I want to discuss is the next one, which is how we think as a communicator. How we think as a communicator, right? So again, how we communicate is based on how we think, what's in our head, right? The words that we say, the tone that we give. Sorry, guys, there seems to be an internet connection issue. Okay, we're back in right now. So we're talking about how we think as a communicator. So to illustrate this, let me give you an example. If you guys have been on a hikes before, some of you like outdoor activities and go on hikes. I like to talk about an experience that I had going to Gunung Tahan, and there were about 4 or 5 of us, and we were all inexperienced hikers, and we were all excited and rushing in this, and the sun was really hot, and a lot of us finished our water supply, right? And when we stopped to take stock, we said, "Hey, who's got water?" So one guy held up his tumbler, and we could see that it was half. There was a The tumbler was half full of water. So some of us got excited, say, "Yay, we still have half a tumbler full of water." And when we got excited, the words we chose were also, words of joy, of pleasure, and we were also in a good mood, and we were smiling, and some of us were even jumping. But strangely enough, a couple of the other guys, upon realizing that we had half a tumbler full of water, they were depressed. In fact, they were upset. They were even scolding us about why weren't we advised about conserving water. And the words they chose were words that were not very joyful, words of frustration and anger. And their behavior was also very hostile, right? They were irritable and they were upset. So the question is, why is that people face the same situation, but some were joyful and some are not? So this is what I mean by how we think as a communicator, right? So how we think about a certain situation. Okay. So I've got questions about communication with Gen Z and all of that. And this is kind of like a topic that is that's not going to be part of what I'm covering today right now. This is a major topic, yes, but it's going to be a different issue. Perhaps we could take that up at some other point, right? Lydia was saying mindset matters. Yes, so mindset matters. So let's get into that. Now, to get into that, I want you to think of someone that you are familiar with that makes you happy. Like, for instance, it could be your best friend. It could be someone at the office who's always cheerful. Or it could be your parent or one of your parents, where they're always friendly. They always make you feel good. So, yeah, Amirul, you're saying your son. Okay, so that's good. So I'd like you to think of this person, and I'd like you to think about how they greet you. What are they like? What questions do they ask you? Ida, you're saying your late dad. So if you think about your late dad, why does your late dad make you feel good? Right? What's his facial expression like when he sees you? So if you guys could put that in a chat box. Lydia, you're saying this person is optimistic, smiles, yeah, and is cheerful. Amirul, you're saying your 2-year-old calls you daddy, 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 or is that daddy too? Yeah. Ida, you're saying that your late dad always greeted you with one of his dad jokes. Yeah, that's always a good one. I know, always glad to see me. Yeah. So if you notice, all these people make you feel good. And the reason they make you feel good is their focus when they are interacting with you, the focus is their relationship, right? Their relationship with you. They're always thinking about how can I relate to this person so that this person and I are on good terms, right? And this category, I would say that, hang on a second, let me change the slide. So these people, I would describe them, this category of people, I would describe them as being relationship oriented. And you can see the list here, right? So if you look at the I for influence and S for steadiness, below them there are bullet points. So these bullet points describe people who are relationship oriented. Rose is saying, your maid has been working for us. She's the sweetest person, happy and thoughtful. Yes, Rajina, please close and rejoin. Okay, so daddy 2 means daddy, daddy. Okay. Gilbert Gomez, you want to have Rose's maid? Yeah, okay. Having someone happy and thoughtful in the house is always great. Now, let me come back to this slide and talk about relationship-oriented people. These people tend to be outgoing. They are lively. They are they could be high-spirited, but there is also a group of them who are not as excitable as the influence people. And these are the S people. S stands for steadiness. They tend to be more even-tempered. They're very cool and very calm. They're very accommodating. You could make mistakes, and they're okay with it. They're very patient. They're very humble. Yeah, they're not as enthusiastic or as talkative as the people in the I group up here. And one of the key attributes that they have is that they're very tactful. They will choose words carefully so as not to offend you, right? Now, I split these into two simply because even though they're relationship oriented, the people who are in the upper quadrant tend to be more outgoing. Yeah. So here on the left, I've indicated that the people in the upper tier tend to be more outgoing. They have higher energy and they like to face people. They're people facing. They like to be in the limelight. They like to be in the forefront. Whereas the people in the lower tier, although they're relationship oriented as well, they tend to be more private. Yeah, they are more they're calmer. Their energy is not as high. They have a calmer energy and they tend to be private. They prefer smaller groups of people. However, in their small group, they can turn into the I people, but only within their groups, right? So if I can summarize, the I people are friendly, they are outgoing, enthusiastic, and the difference between them and the people who are in the S group is that the I people tend to enjoy publicity, whereas the S people are more private. Okay, now now that you've got the relationship-oriented people, there's always a flip side. Now, the flip side, when you think about your best friend or your parent who is in the relationship-oriented category, I want you to think about the other parent. And usually the other parent is just quite the opposite. Or think of a boss. Think of a boss who is more firm, more strict. Right? What would their characteristics be? Okay, what would their characteristics be? Would they be as friendly? Would they be more, what would their expression be like? They're more assertive. Ida says more assertive. Exactly. They're more assertive. They go straight to the point. Okay, what else? They are fast-paced. I think you meant fast. Yeah, fast-paced. Exactly, they're fast-paced. They don't beat around the bush. If they want something, they're very direct. They tell you directly that they want something. They don't mince words. yeah, and they like to do things fast. Yeah, MRJS, they tell you as it is, no hidden agenda. They don't, they often don't bother you too much. Yes, Arif, you're right. They don't bother you too much. They only come to you when they want to get something done or they want to discuss something serious. All right, so just let me um, get into that definition or description of what this category people are like. And I call them task oriented, task or work oriented. And again, although they're work oriented, they're divided into two categories, right? The upper category is a category of people that I call dominants or that are known as to be dominant, right? And dominance um, is what their attribute is like. They're very direct, they're result oriented, no mincing of words. They tell you exactly what they want. They know exactly what they want. They're very firm. They're strong willed. Because once they want something, they tend not to change their minds and they're very forceful. Okay, MRJS, I think you missed some of my points earlier. Don't worry, it's all in the slides and you can download them later. And under the category of being task oriented, there's also a group of people who are not as front facing and not as people facing. They tend to be more private. And these are the ones that are called conscientiousness. Their attribute is being conscientious. Now, conscientious simply means they pay attention to detail. They take things seriously. And these are the people who are very analytical, right? They're the ones who, when you talk to them, they're very quiet. They're always just listening and thinking, right? And they don't say much. And when they say something, it's always to critique or to point out certain things they don't agree, right? They're very reserved. They're very precise. This is also something that describes them very well. When they do something, they need it to be precise. And they're very private. They don't share things very much unless you ask them. They don't voluntarily share things, like the I person, for instance. And the conscientious person is very systematic. If there is a process to follow, they tend to want to follow it. Okay, so this is how they think as a communicator. In other words, what I've just done is I've just described to you the attributes of the DISC model. Okay, remember in the agenda, there's an element called, there is an item called DISC. So here it is. So the D is for dominance, right? The dominance is the attribute. I for influence. Again, influence is their attribute. They like to influence things, get people to do things. Jom, let's go see a movie, or let's go makan. Let's do certain things. And then you have the S people. S stands for steadiness, and you have the C attribute, which is conscientiousness. Okay, so these are their attributes. And before we go on further, some of you may be thinking, wait a minute, that is me to some extent, but I also have other attributes. So I'm a mix of both, so which am I? Now, those are valid questions, right? So what I like to highlight is being a D, an I, or S, or a C is not set in stone. Yeah, it is not. It doesn't describe you. It doesn't describe you completely. It is how you tend to behave, right? So number 2 is it describes your tendency to look at things and how to behave, right? So for instance, if you're a D person and your attribute is to assert yourself, right? So you tend to want to assert yourself. If you see something that's not right, you want to assert yourself. And likewise for the other attributes, right? So in other words, we are a mix of D, I, S, or C in varying degrees. And it also depends on the circumstances you're in. And this is where I like to share with you a funny story. I had a meeting with a very strong alpha male. my training partner and I, my colleague and I, we had a meeting with this alpha male, happens to be a soldier, a general, and generals they used to shouting orders, yelling out orders in the field. So when we were in his office, he was doing the same thing, calling people. And when he calls people, he just shouts, and people just suddenly appear at the door and say, "Yes, sir," and he says, "Sit down. Explain to them what we want." Blah 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 blah. His just yelling out order, barking out orders. And then the phone rang, and when the phone rang, suddenly his tone went down, and he goes, "Hello, you're that? Yes, I am. Yes, okay, yes, I'll do that. I understand. Yeah, okay, don't worry, I'll bring it home." And so his tone went down, and he became an S person who's a lot more friendly, a lot more tactful. Yeah, so my colleague and I, we looked at each other and we were trying not to smile. But so this is a case where you can be a D in one situation and an S in another situation. Okay, and the examples I'm going to give you are extreme attributes, right? And I'm giving you extreme attributes so that the illustration is clear, right? And you can see the differences. And finally, what's important is that you or we as a human being, you have it now, once you have an awareness of all these different attributes, you have a choice. I think Ida said that. You have a choice of choosing one or the other. Yes, Ida, you're talking about DISC is one of the methods of knowing each other. And there are other methods too, you're right. And I'm choosing this because it is simple to understand. It's easy to understand. And if you want, you can explore other personality attributes as well. So let's move on. So based on those descriptions, which do you think describes you best? Please take this poll. Either you think you're an I. Okay, you're an I, you're a person of influence, and you're probably the life of the party, or you're the one who talks a lot, and makes a lot of noise, invites people to do things. And okay, we've got some poll responses here. So far, 60, 55, or it was at 60 earlier. 60% of you, which is the highest, are C. C meaning you are conscientious, which means you pay attention to details a lot, and you think a lot. Yeah, you think a lot. So you're like me. You think a lot, and sometimes we think so much that we don't get things done because we're always thinking. So C tends to be the highest for this group of audience. Number 2 is steadiness. Yeah, S. So this is a friendly group, right? So so if you notice earlier, let me go back to this. C and S are quieter groups, right? So they are the calmer groups, and the D and the I are the more energetic, higher energy level. They are the ones who are more assertive and people facing, right? So in this group, we tend to have the members of the audience tend to belong to conscientious and steady, which is the lower tier here. Okay. So conscientious is the highest, and dominance is the least, and that's usually the case. If you take a random sample of people, the D tends to be the least, and that's why not everybody is a boss. Yeah. So if you notice here, the boss tends to be forceful. They tend to make decisions a lot. Yeah. So not everybody does that. Yeah. So the boss is the D is the least number of people in a random group. Then you've got the I, which is the life of the party. And then the C gives sanity because they are the ones who are, who think a lot. And the S people are the ones who tend to keep the peace and harmony in the group. So I hope you guys are getting this. Okay. So let's look at what are the positive effects that these different attributes produce. Okay. If you look at the D people, they tend to get things done, right? They're always about achieving things. Let's get these things done. Let's make a decision, right? And they're driven. They're very driven. If there's a deadline, you give them a deadline, and they like to rise up to the challenge. They don't like to lose. They're very direct. And of course, they're very practical as well. While other people might think of some glamorous solution to a problem, the D people are very direct. Let's just do this. This is the shortest way to get the results, and that's the thing that they'll do. The other attributes that belong to the task-oriented people are the conscientious people. Now, they are perfect at paying attention to detail. Okay, so hang on, let me go back to the D people, right? So they tend to make bosses. They tend to be bosses, right? They tend to be the leader of the group. Whereas the C people, they tend to be the brains behind the group because they pay attention to detail. They're very methodical. They're not impulsive. They like to get things organized. They pay attention to quality, and they're very systematic. Okay, so the C people are also task oriented, and they pay attention more to organization. So they're good at they're better at doing research, for instance. So these attributes are more oriented towards doing research work, right? Or organizing things or coming up with processes and procedures. Then you have the relationship oriented people. For the I kind of people, they tend to be persuasive. Either you're saying that you're an I person, so if you reflect on yourself, I bet you are the ones who get your group moving, right? They're the life of the party. You're the one who laughs a lot, and you're the one with the crazy ideas, right? So you tend to be persuasive, like to influence others, right? And these are the people who get things moving. So they are, if you want to get a dinner and dance organized for your company, you need someone like this to come up with ideas to get people excited, right? Because they're also very creative. Then finally, you have the S people or the steadiness people who are very calm and very patient. These people, although quiet, they tend to be the strength of the organization because they are calm and patient. They're very trustworthy. Everybody trusts them. And they tend to want to maintain the peace and harmony of the group, right? So every one of these attributes are complementary. And if the group is unbalanced, then I'm going to go to the next slide, which shows the blind spots or effects that kind of like negate the positive effects. Right. So let's just go right into it right now. So going back to the people who are dominant, what they don't realize is that while they get things done, while they're very strong in making decisions and all that stuff, people tend to view them as insensitive because especially the S people pay attention a lot to relationships. The D people don't. And when they don't, the S people see them as insensitive or unfeeling. They view them as unfriendly. So if you're a D person, you're wondering, how come people don't like me? This could be the reason, right? So if you want to balance it out, you need to adopt more of the S attributes. Okay, so and it works for the others as well. So I don't have time at the moment to go into detail with the others, but I think you get the picture. Okay, so how do you interact with the others? So as I mentioned earlier, if you're dominant and you're finding that, although people listen to what you say, but they really hate your guts, then you may want to adopt the diagonally opposing attribute, which is the attribute of the steadiness category. Yeah, so you want to be kinder. So before asking them to do some work, perhaps you want to ask them, have you had, the traditional Asian way of asking questions? Have you had lunch yet? How are you feeling? Are you okay? I need your help. So you use words like I need your help. And I'll give you a quick example about influence and conscientious. I had a training partner one time when I was first setting out. And when we wanted to do a proposal, I always end up doing the proposal because I'm the thinker. But it takes time for me to get a proposal done. A week later, my partner, who is highly influential, We'll be asking, hey, how's the proposal? And I would say, I'm still working on it. And then she'll get upset because people in this higher quadrant are very fast paced, and then she sit down and within an hour, she get the proposal out. But when I take a look at it, there's so many things missing. There's a headline and a few words, a headline and a few words, so many things missing. But what I realized was that she would already have made decisions for me about what are the contents within the proposal, and I would just fill it out. So then we realized that, hey, we should really work together. So the next time when we needed to do a proposal, she would sit down and for the next hour, she would craft the outline, and then I would spend the next day or so filling it out. But at least I wasn't spending a week. So that's how we complement each other. Now, another secret, well, I wouldn't say secret, but another trick, another tip, another technique on how to communicate with the other groups is by looking at words, right? So an example is this. What kind of words do dominant people like to hear? They like to hear words like results or performance, right? So if you are a person who is non-D, and if you want to talk to a D, first of all, the way you behave has to be very confident because they are confident. The minute you're not confident, they lose that interest in you. So you behave confident and you choose words that has like this, right? So for instance, if you say, hey boss, if your boss is dominant, I like to suggest, I like to make a proposal, and this proposal is going to make us perform 10 times better, right? So this proposal involves a reorganization of the accounting system. And with this accounting system, we'll be the first one, the organization, to implement it. And we're going to get results instead of within the next day, we're going to get results within the next hour, right? So people who are dominant like to hear these kind of words. So these are the kind of words you need to choose. For the I people, these are the kind of words you can choose. Yeah, exciting, creative, fun. And for people who have attributes of steadiness, you need to be more polite with them because they value the relationship and they value courtesy, they value respect. So you use words like help, I need your help. Yeah, can we do this together? Yeah, and words like friends and teamwork. And finally, for conscientiousness, they love to hear words like process. I need you to come up with a system that is logical and methodical so that it's fail-proof. So they like to hear words like this. All right, so these are some of the words that you can use in order to interact with one another more effectively. So finally, if I can recap, how we can interact with others is by, okay, let me go back a little bit. By understanding how to interact with others, by knowing their behavior, knowing their attributes, we can interact effectively by adapting to their different communication lifestyles. So if you're a D and if you are talking to an S person, you need to talk in a manner that doesn't rush them, right? So you can't say things like, I want this immediately. Or you could say, I really need your help to get this thing done because we're behind schedule and it's affecting all the others with the payroll, right? So you need to find some form of words and choice of words that they are more receptive to them, right? And by knowing how to interact with others, you will create more effective relationships. Now, I think, I forget who it was who says that you create your own problems or you create your own stress. And this is perhaps how we look at things, yeah? How we live life. Now, by understanding our own strengths and weaknesses, you can actually adjust and adapt your behavior. So if you are someone who is and who has S attributes, and you're wondering, why are people always taking advantage of me? It could be perhaps that your non-assertive behavior, and because of your focus on peace and harmony, You don't like to push. And because you don't like to push, people view you as non-assertive. And when you're non-assertive, you tend to get bullied. I'll give you an example. Somebody might borrow money from you and they don't pay you back. And because you don't want to face conflict, you don't ask for it back from them. And you view yourself as being taken advantage of. Right? So if you understand that that's because you tend to be more of an S, you can adapt the D behavior. So look at the quadrants and adapt behaviors that are diagonally opposing, right? And by doing all of these things, all these adjustments, you can create a better version of yourself. And I would like to be able to say that over the years, I have been creating a better version of myself, and it is evolving. Yeah, there's no finality to it. It's always an evolution. Okay, so that basically is a summary of what are the benefits of knowing about DISC. And if you require more support or services from Naluri, let me go through it very quickly. You can scan this to register, and you can get into Naluri and participate in a challenge, the Moon Mindfulness Challenge. Check it out. The second thing that you can do is for some of the questions that you ask, you can get one-on-one consultation by scanning this. Again, don't worry, these are all in the handouts which you can download. You can also access Naluri app and website by scanning these two. And finally, I like to encourage you to stay connected. And there's also a feedback form that's going to pop up. Okay, and on the right of the screen, where the chat and the polls are, there's a handout you can download. And there's a pop-up that says give feedback. So yeah, so please click on that. And we really appreciate the feedback, because the feedback is where we get to improve our presentation. We get to improve the quality of our presentation, and we get to improve on the content, or rather make the content more relevant to you, right? So we really, really, really appreciate the feedback. And again, if you are, not to pick on the D, but for some of us, we don't like feedback. We don't like feedback because it's like a criticism, right? But if you start to understand that feedback is a way of getting an opinion of how others think and become receptive to that, you're able to improve yourself. Okay, we're getting more clicks on the feedback, so please continue. Well, we're also getting a lot of downloads. That's great. Yeah, and again, I encourage you to serve the internet to understand more about DISC or other models that talk about how you tend to behave, or sometimes they call it personality tests. Now, I don't really like to call it personality tests, because when you talk about personality, it tends to you tend to be fixed with thinking that that's who you are. But if you talk about behaviors, then you tend to realize that, hey, that's just a behavior that I can change, right? Okay, we're still getting feedback, which is great. And for some of you who have already downloaded or given feedback, I'd like to encourage you to ask questions, because this is where you can ask questions, and if I can answer them during this time, we got about 5 more minutes if we don't overrun the session, because I know some of you are very busy. A lot of you are very busy. We're smack dab in the middle of the of the week. Okay, I'm still seeing a lot more feedback. And some downloads. Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, so do I have any tests that can share so we will know what type of persons we are actually? Okay, again, when you say what type of person we are, I want to caution you that that's not really the type of person that you are, but it describes you. Why I discourage you for saying what type of person is that then you tend to say, oh, that's who I am and I can't change. Too bad, right? But if you say that's how I tend to behave, then you can pick and choose the attribute that can be most that can be most effective for you. All right. So yes, there are a lot of tests, and all you need to do is just type DISC test, right? Go to the to Google and type DISC test, or personality test, and you find a lot of tests that are conducted for free, and it gives you good description as well. Okay, thanks for that question, Niana. Okay, next question from Bazli is we tend to only look at the other person's attributes. He's so pushy. Example, he's so pushy. She doesn't think about others, is only think about work, etc. Can you advise on how to not see things that way because we know everyone has a different DISC? Okay, great question. Now, the thing is this, do not deny. That's what I want to say, right? So for instance, if you have a boss that's pushy, right? Um, and so you're asking me, Bazli, can I advise how not to see things that way? Um, well, first of all, you got to see things that way. Yeah, you got to say, okay, this boss is pushy, but now your mindset has to change. I think Ida talked about, or someone else talked about mindset. Um, your mindset has to change. You just have to recognize that, yes, this person is pushy, but he's pushy because he belongs to the D category of behaviors, right? They just want to get things done. They're just so driven. They have to be pushy. So how you need to be able to cope with that is to either respond to that pushiness, or if you need more time, you can say things like, boss, I understand that we want to achieve this deadline, but here are the things that I can do if you want it to be done by tomorrow, right? If you want me to do more than these things, then I need a bit more time than tomorrow, right? So this is where perhaps you need some one-to-one coaching, yeah, because like I said, I've been evolving over the years, and I've learned to adjust on how to answer these questions, you know. And I've discussed issues with friends. I've also done research on the internet. So you need to be able to, first of all, to recognize how they are and uh, accept that that's how they are, right? So for instance, I was a strong S type of a person. So if you wanted to get me to do something, I would prefer it if you were to say, hey, Omar, I need your help. Omar, are you free at 3 o'clock? Can you help me? But if you were to ask me, Omar, see me at 3, come to my office at 5 and help me do this. Yeah, I used to get upset, or I won't even turn up before I understood DISC. But once I understood it, I realized that that's how that person is, because they don't have attributes of the S person, right? They're more dominant, very assertive, right? So I become more tolerant about the D people. I hope that answers your question, Bazli. Okay, another question by Jacqueline is, can D have some elements of narcissism? Oh yes, D people have a very high degree of narcissism. Okay, so they're viewed as egoistical. Egoistical means they view themselves very highly. or even egotistical. Egotistical means they talk about themselves, about their accomplishments, about their achievements, and it just makes others, nauseous, right? It makes the others are sick and tired of hearing all that. So yes, they have a high degree of narcissism, and that's why they want to win all the time. That's why they're driven. That's why they want to get things done. So there's always a good and bad side to things, right? So if you are a D and you recognize that you're narcissistic, it's good that you recognize that, right? So if you look at athletes, for instance, people like Lee Chong Wei, right? They are narcissistic. They got to win. But however, people like Lee Chong Wei have learned not to give the narcissistic, not to portray a narcissistic image. Yeah, when he speaks with others, when he interacts with others, he's humble. He's humble. He doesn't talk big. So then he becomes more accepting, more receptive, or rather, he becomes more. Others become more tolerant of him. Not he becomes, but others become more receptive of him. Because he's able to hide it. He doesn't express his narcissism through words, but he expresses his narcissism through the will to win. Yeah. So let me take another example. People who are the S attributes, or who have S attributes, their focus is not being narcissistic. Their focus is about peace, harmony, about the well-being of others. So they're not seen as narcissistic, and they don't talk in that manner as well. All right. So if you find that as an S person, you may need to adopt some narcissism, if I may say so. And I can say that because I've learned that I was a very S person, and I find that I'm overwhelmed by people asking me to help them all the time, and I would put my work second, and I would prioritize helping them first, until I realized that I wasn't winning. So I needed to have some wins, right? And in order to have some wins, I have to be a little narcissistic by saying, nope, I got to get my stuff done first. I'll do your stuff later, right? So I had to readjust. So this is what I mean by evolving. So I hope that answers your question, Jacqueline. Okay. Okay. So here's another question by Bosley again. Answering thing is, another thing is why most of the time we ourselves need to adapt to other people. Why not the other way around? Okay. Mahatma Gandhi said, if you want change, then you need to be the change. Now, you're absolutely right, Bosley. Why is that we have to change? Well, here's one answer. Bosley, you're in this session, right? This presentation, and you have this awareness. Someone else that you can't stand, for instance, because they're too narcissistic, they don't have that awareness, right? But you have to deal with them. So when they don't have that awareness, they can't make that change, but you can, right? So this is actually an advantage for you, because it makes you more adaptable to your environment, right? I know that you're looking at it as, why me? I mean, it's like I'm the loser all the time. I have to change. But here's what I want you to do. I want to encourage you to look at you having an advantage. You have extra information. You have extra wisdom. And it's not that you're a loser. It's that you have this ability to adapt. Let me give you an example. Sometimes when we have a foreign friend, yeah, and they are trying to speak the local language, but they have this foreign accent, and then suddenly when we speak, okay, so hang on, let me rephrase that. Let's say I'm speaking to a foreigner, a non-Malaysian, and we're both speaking English, right? And I find that the non-Malaysian who's speaking English has a very strong non-Malaysian accent. Now, suddenly I find myself copying his accent. And I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't he copy my accent? Then I realized that the reason I'm copying his accent is simply because I can. I can. I have this ability to copy his accent so that I can adapt to his way of communication so that our interaction becomes more effective, whereas he can't. Right? So look at things positively on the bright side, Basley. Um, we can adapt simply because we can. Yeah, we have this extra ability to adapt to others. All right, so look at it from that standpoint. I hope that helps. Okay, one more question. Is it possible, and this is from Raymond, is it possible that others may see us to have a different DISC attribute from what we see in ourselves? Oh, yes, definitely. A lot of times we're blind. That's why I use the term blind spot, right? So going back to the DISC. So let me pick on the D person, on a C person. I've always been picking on D. Let me pick on a C person, right? So if I'm doing research work, like for instance, the example I gave you between my partner and I, my partner is an I person and I'm a C person, which means that I like to do things thoroughly, comprehensively. When I do research, I like to really dig deep. You know, I I click on something and then when I find some information, I click further and I click further. Now in my mind, I'm being thorough. You know, I want to cover all aspects. I want it to be perfect. But from the perspective of my partner, I'm slow. I'm just taking too long. What's wrong with me? Right? So this is where we see each other differently. Right? And again, back to the D and the S. The D person wants to get the job done fast. And so he's talking to an S person. He's going, I want this done by 3 o'clock. And the S person sees him as someone insensitive. Okay, we see ourselves as being productive, whereas the S person sees us as insensitive. All right, so yes, we can see each other as having different attributes. Okay, I hope that helps, Raymond. Let's take another question. Let's take 2 more questions and then we'll have to call it a day. No, Shafika, your question is, hello, sir, can you suggest books and videos to leverage communication skills? Yes, there are a lot. And like I said, you can surf the net, you know, because as I read them, sometimes when I read book A, I don't understand it. And when I read book B, basically it's saying the same thing, but in a different way, and I like book B. But a friend of mine will say, hey, I like book A better, you know, so I can't really recommend a book. What I would suggest is find reading material. If it's too complicated for you, find another one. So that's what I've learned. Find something that you can relate to, that you can understand easily. And sometimes because you have an understanding at that level, you can move on to a more sophisticated book and it becomes an easier comprehension, right? It becomes easier for you to understand that book. So yes, just go ahead. You know, no right or wrong answer. Just there's tons of videos and they're all very useful. So make it a point to just click on videos or reading material. Read something for 10, 15 minutes every day, and pretty soon, you know, you'll be up to speed. Okay, so good luck, Shafika. Okay, Amirul says maybe later during Q&A you would want to compare with using MBTI communications and at Naluri events. Yeah, perhaps we could, but it wouldn't be during this Q&A session. We may take it offline. So Amirul mentioned MBTI. MBTI is also another personality type categorization, right? So I pick a DISC because it's easier to explain and to understand. And you can move on to MBTI, and there are other more sophisticated ones as well. Thank you for that question, Amirul. Okay, one last question. All right, this is the last one from Lim. Lim says, how do we communicate with a person even when we say no? Okay, I saw this one. that our boss is not available, but yet they use their boss's names or even go directly to my boss. Okay, so this is a very situational type of a scenario. Um, there are a number of ways to deal with this. This is not, yes, this is a personality issue because that person is very assertive. But how I see the way to resolve this is to make an arrangement. Yeah. So you could talk to your boss and say, boss, this person is, overstepping me or going over my head, going around me to get to you. If that's okay with you, then that's fine. But if it's not okay with you, I think you need to tell them that they have to go through me. So this is more a question of an arrangement, Lim, not so much of a personality question. Um, and I hope that little bit of an answer that I gave you helps. Yeah. So this is an arrangement situation. Okay. All right. So that concludes our presentation for today. We have exceeded by a little bit, which is great, and I take that as a positive indication of the value of the presentation, and I really appreciate that. I hope this really helps you as it has me, and like I said, I'm still evolving. Um, my kids are all grown now, and how I work with them is also different. And one of them, he's a strong C. So in other words, he's very detailed. And I used to get upset because I'm thinking that why is he so slow? And it's not because he's slow; it's because he wants to be precise. So today, when I deal with him, I try to understand his questions and I try to be more precise as well. And guess what? The most important thing, stress is gone. Yeah, so a lot of my stress is gone dealing with others simply because I understand better the DISC model. Yeah, so here's where I wish you good luck and please continue learning. And um, well, I hope we meet again sometime. See ya.